Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. So we will continue our discussion on socio-religious reform movements. We have already done 3 sessions. In the first session we have talked about Brahmo Samaj, or we have discussed about Rajaram Mohan Roy in detail. And in the second session we have done Wahhabi movement. That was actually a revivalist movement among Muslims. The first one that we have discussed is actually a reformist movement among the Hindus, then revivalist movement, and then in the third session we have talked about a reformist movement among Muslims, that is Aligarh movement, and we have discussed about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan in detail. Okay, so in this session we will be talking about a revivalist movement among Hindus, that is Arya Samaj. So when we talk about socio-religious reform movements, we divide into two: reformist movements and revivalist movement. So the two reformist movement that we have already discussed is Brahmo Samaj from Hindu side and Aligarh movement from Muslim side. And two revivalist movement that we are discussing, one we have already done, that is Wahhabi movement from Muslim side, and Arya Samaj is from Hindu side. So it's actually, Arya Samaj actually is a orthodox revivalist movement. Okay, it is contrary to Brahmo Samaj. So unlike Rajaram Mohan Roy, here they are not ready to accept the Western culture. They are not ready to accept any other culture. For them, everything is related to, Vedas. So go back to Vedas is the slogan of Arya Samaj. Okay, so let's get into the details of Arya Samaj. So we will start with Arya Samaj. Okay, so it was started by Swami Dayananda Saraswati. So here we are actually discussing about Swami Dayananda Saraswati. The original name was Mool Shankar Tiwari. Mool Shankar Tiwari. He started the Arya Samaj movement. Okay, so he started Arya Samaj movement, originally from Gujarat, and he was born in 1824. Okay, in 1875 in Bombay, Arya Samaj started. Bombay, Arya Samaj started in 1875. So much before, you will see in 1828 Brahmo Samaj, that was a reformist movement. Here it is, Arya Samaj 1875 from Bombay, and in 1877 the headquarter was shifted to Lahore. Okay, so his slogan was go back to Vedas. Okay, so go back to Vedas. This was the slogan of Arya Samaj, so that's why it was a revivalist movement. So he basically wanted to revive Hindu society as it was in Vedic period. When I am talking about Vedic period, means 1500 to 600 BC. Like if you remember, one of the other revivalist movement that we have discussed was Wahhabi movement. There I have told you the movement originated in Saudi Arabia by Wahhab ibn Arabi, and then the objective or the idea was basically to bring back Islam it was in 7th century Arab. So for them, 7th century Arab, the Islam was in its pure form. Now there are some practices in Islam which are un-Islamic, so all those things are actually rejected by Wahhabis. And Wahhabi movement was also a revivalist movement. So here, go back to Vedas. So revive Hinduism as in the case of Vedic period. That means this period. And he only approved Vedas and Upanishads. So when I am talking about Vedas, Rig Veda, Samveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda. And he rejected all other literatures like Puranas and everything he rejected. And unlike Rajaram Mohan Roy, when we talked about Rajaram Mohan Roy, I've told you he responded with the changes which is happening in the West, or his mindset was modern. He was ready to accept the other cultures, but Dayananda Saraswati or Arya Samaj was never ready to accept other culture or the Western culture. They have never ready to accept anything from Islam or Christianity, right? But when we talked about Rajaram Mohan Roy, I have told you he have read the original textbooks by studying the original language, and he have understood some good elements from different religion. Like for example, from Islam, he took equality, and from Christianity he considered humanity as one of the best element, and from Hinduism, spiritualism is what he was most impressed with, right? So he was ready to accept and accommodate these good elements from different cultures, but Unlike Rajaram Mohan Roy, here Dayananda Saraswati was not ready to accept that. So for him, the true knowledge and solution for all problems are actually there in Vedas and Upanishads. So you don't want to go back to go with any other culture or anything else. Okay, everything is there in Vedas and Upanishads. Okay, so he rejected certain practices among Hindu system. Like I have already discussed this when we discussed about Brahmo Samaj. He rejected idol worship. So see, this point has to be very clear to you. Otherwise, if you get a statement or a question like this in prelims, like which among the following is correct with respect to Arya Samaj, and you get a statement rejected idol worship. So there are possibility that you think that this is a revivalist movement, orthodox movement. So a rejection of idol worship may not be possible. But if it was Brahmo Samaj, it may be possible because that was a reformist movement. So here he rejected idol worship, and he also promoted monotheism. So this is actually similar to Brahmo Samaj. See, when we talk about revivalist movement, any revivalist movement, there is an element of reform. Here also, he first tried to reform Hindu system, and then the second part is controversial. Like in Wahhabi movement also, when we have discussed, the first part was reforming Islamic system, like in case of 7th century, that was a good part, okay, but the second part was controversial, and it was the problematic one, like establishment of Islamic society, okay, or Islamic state. So that created a lot of issues, and their objective was to convert India into Darul Islam from Darul Harb. That means land of infidels or land of non-believers to land of peace. Here also in the second part there are some controversies which are going to come. We'll discuss that in detail in terms of cow protection movement and Shuddhi movement, etc. But the first part of Arya Samaj that we are discussing, there are a lot of elements of reform within that. One such point is what we have discussed here. They rejected idol worship, and you cannot see any idols in any Arya Samaj mandirs across the country. There are a lot of Arya Samaj mandirs, but you won't see any idols. Okay, so rejected idol worship and promoted monotheism, promoted the idea of formless God, okay, and one God. Okay, so he rejected certain practices among Hindus. Idol worship rejected, and advocated belief in one and formless God. So one and formless God, exactly the same point as what we have discussed in case of Brahmo Samaj. So this is actually same, and this is one of the reformist element in the Arya Samaj. Second point, he set up various Arya Samaj mandirs or temples, and you won't see any idols over there. He criticized certain rituals in Hindu society, not one or two but many rituals, and he tried to simplify the Hindu religion and its practices. Okay, so for example, simple marriages in temples. And one more point that I want to tell you is that also may make students confused, that he promoted intercaste marriage. Okay, so if you get a statement again like this, which among the following is correct with respect to Arya Samaj, in that if you get Arya Samaj promoted intercaste marriage, you may think that it may not be possible because it's a revivalist movement, and the marriage rules in India is caste endogamy and clan exogamy. Caste endogamy means, let's suppose this is a Brahmin caste and there's a Kshatriya caste. You cannot marry from outside. The caste exogamy is prohibited. You have to marry from within. Caste endogamy is the rule. But Arya Samaj actually promoted caste exogamy, or intercaste marriage is promoted. That is against the religious rules. So you may think that it may not be there in Arya Samaj, and you may go for a no answer. But it is actually correct. Arya Samaj actually promoted intercaste marriage. Now keep in mind one more thing. During this time, by 1872, under Universal Marriage Act, already Lord Northbrook allowed intercaste marriage, and the government is going to protect those couples even if it is an intercaste marriage satisfying certain conditions, the age criteria and everything. Okay, so on one side government legalized it. Now even if you are going against intercaste marriage, you will be facing problem from government side. So it is better to support intercaste marriage. Maybe because of that reason he supported. Whatever it is, what you need to know is Arya Samaj promoted intercaste marriage, and this has to be printed in your mind, because if you try to make a guesswork once you see the answer, until and unless if you don't have the clarity about this, you may make the guesswork, and in that you will go wrong in this case. Okay, because you think that it's orthodox movement, revivalist movement, so there is no chance of intercaste marriage is what you may possibly think. Not only you, even 90% of the student who's going to make a guesswork out of it, they will go with this only. Okay, but it promoted intercaste marriage. So for one and formless God, rejected idol worship, promoted intercaste marriage. These two are the reforms within this particular revivalist movement, that is Arya Samaj. Okay, and then see, ultimately the idea of Arya Samaj is actually, everything, every reform, whatever is required in Hindu society is there within. We don't want the help of, West, or we don't want the help of British. Everything is there in Vedas, and, we are just supposed to apply it in our daily life. So ultimately what he is looking for is the solution to all the problems is just revive the tradition, and we don't want to borrow anything from British. Everything is there in our literature, Vedas, Upanishads. So you just need to revive it back. So that's the idea of Arya Samaj or Dayananda Saraswati. And they also started some controversial issues, and that is what we need to discuss now in terms of cow protection movement and Shuddhi movement. So cow protection movement. So they started Gau Raksha Samiti. Okay, so slowly it started communalizing the society in northern India. Even now also you will see this particular issue, and it started for the protection of cows. Slowly it was presumed as, anti-Muslim and anti-Christian organization, or it turned out to be, a lot of communal violences and religious riots were created, resulted in a series of communal clash between Muslims and Hindus. Okay, so there was an interesting statement by Gandhi in this context. He actually wondered the need of this organization, Gau Rakshak Samiti. He said, I don't think such a need. Okay, and he said, I'm a Hindu and I request my Muslim and Christian brothers not to slaughter cow. And even if you don't accept it, I can't kill you, because human being is more important for me than animals. So that statement is very important in this particular context by Gandhi. The next issue was related to Shuddhi movement. It is actually a purification ceremony. The meaning of this is actually purification in Sanskrit. Okay, so it is actually done to convert those people who are already converted to some other religion. So from Hinduism, if people converted to Islam or Christianity, to reconvert them back to Hindus, this ceremony was conducted, Shuddhi movement, and this also resulted in a lot of communal violence and religious riots and religious clashes between Hindus and Muslims mainly. So ultimately this too, that is Shuddhi movement and cow protection, communalized Indian society, and that led to a lot of religious riots and communal clashes between Muslims and Muslims and Hindus in the Indian society during 19th and 20th century. Okay, and Dayananda Saraswati, when we come back to Dayananda Saraswati, he wrote a book, Satyarth Prakash. This question was asked before in prelims, Satyarth Prakash, and he died in 1883, Ajmer, okay, Rajasthan. And then his followers, like when we discussed about Brahmo Samaj, I've told you after the Rajaram Mohan Roy, Debendranath Tagore and Keshub Chandra Sen took this movement forward. Like that, after the death of Dayananda Saraswati, his followers were of two categories. Okay, there were of two groups, moderates. This is not the moderates that we discussed under freedom struggle. That was different moderates, and not extremist orthodox. Okay, moderates means those people who are ready to accept change, but they are actually against the core principles of Arya Samaj, because when we started with Arya Samaj, I've told you they are not ready to accept change, they are not ready to accept other cultures, etc. But the moderates among the followers are now ready to accept change. So they are kind of people who are looking for reforms. So they are part of some reforms. Okay, so they are the moderates who are ready to change or ready for change, and these people are rigid in their thoughts, beliefs and practices. So they continued the same beliefs and practices. So they were rigid in their thoughts and practices. And moderates were led by two famous leaders, Lala Hansraj and Lala Lajpat Rai. And in 1887 they founded a school, very famous. 1887 they founded DAV school, so Dayanand Anglo-Vedic school. This name itself will tell you Dayanand, that is related to Dayananda Saraswati. Anglo-Vedic school, so Anglo means they are looking for scientific education of West, they are ready to accept the Western education. Vedic means the Indian education, that means the values of East. If you can connect it to Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, it is exactly the same as that of it, right? When we discussed about Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, Mohammedan, okay, leave that, and Anglo-Oriental, here Anglo-Vedic, both are actually same. So the objective, here it is school, there it was college. So both English or the Western as well as Eastern education has to be incorporated in the, and they are ready to accept the scientific knowledge from West, and they at the same time they focus also on Vedas. Okay, so and what about Orthodox? They are led by Swami Shraddhananda. Okay, so he rejected the West and their concept of education. So he rejected West, as I have already told you, they are rigid in their thoughts, beliefs and practices. And in 1902 they also started a Gurukul in Haridwar. So Gurukul in Haridwar. Okay, hope this is clear for all of you. If you have any doubt, you can get in touch with me here, or you can join this Telegram channel for all my videos. Okay, so see you guys. Thank you.